Okay, you guys, so we're going to go back to the series on judgment. A lot of people are starting to rely on the filters they have and the hate in their heart to judge other people. And I mean, they say things like, I think, or I know, or they say, I know what you're thinking. And one thing that I've noticed is people aren't spending a lot of time listening to God. They're not listening into their intuition. They're not tuning in. They're not being in prayer. There are so many things that aren't taking place by people who are constantly telling you what they think, but they aren't logically processing what they think. What they're actually doing is working out their frustrations. Like, for example, right now, T-Mobile has been calling Sprint customers and offering them free phones. And then once you get there, and I've seen it at different stores with different people, basically it's a bait and switch because they need their services because T-Mobile bought Sprint, and now Sprint customers are on one network. T-Mobile's on another network because they were separate companies. And so what T-Mobile's doing without being ethical, so you know that's why I'm talking to you about this. Without being ethical, what they're doing is getting Sprint customers to come into a T-Mobile store to change to Sprint with the promise of an iPhone. The Sprint customers already have the iPhone, but the T-Mobile need the Sprint customers to switch to the network so that they no longer have to support the Sprint network that they acquired. Now, they knew this when they acquired the company, and there are ethical ways to do that. So now let's think of it as soul. Once you get there, it's like little demons. Just switch it up. The deal they got you with is not the deal you end up with. There's like $400 worth of fees once you do the taxes and the hidden fees that they don't reveal. So $400 is not free, it's $400, and it's $240 something in taxes plus a little $30 fee here, $120 fee here, and so they just play this game. But they don't even tell you that once you get there. They do all the paperwork, and I have the recording. Maybe I'll make a video for you guys. But they're also judging who they get to do it to, right? So I've seen that in the differences in the customer. Sorry, the landscaper is here if you're hearing background noise. But be glad the landscaper is here because look how lovely, because the landscaper's here. So anyways, let's think of it this way. By not offering the deal that they got you into the store for, that's fraud. But the clerks are deciding based on gender, disability, race, who they get to rip off more or who they get to deceive more. So if they think they're going to lose the sale, then they switch it and say, oh, we're going to waive all the fees. But then they don't waive the fees. They just threaten to turn off your phone if you don't pay the fees that they promised to waive. And then some people, out of racism or disability, I've seen not even send the phone. So they don't even send the new phone. They just switch you over and then start acting like, oh, well, you switched over, thanks, that's what we wanted. So how many times in life are you dealing with people who are just total butts, like total butt head? Like, and I mean, like, we used to say when we were little, we couldn't say words like that. Like, the S word was stupid when I was a little kid. You know, we didn't know other S words. The F word was fool, by the way. So, who are you having to deal with on a daily basis? You can put it in the chat below. Write it down, you know, that kind of thing. Who's being a bully and laughing and thinking they're going to get away with it? Because there are things you can think, say, and do to make sure bullies don't get away with it. Okay? And part of it is owning who you are and knowing everything that means in who you are, right? Because I was raised in a house that literally had a Bible on a pedestal. It was a beautiful white Bible. It took me 30 years to find that same Bible so that I could have my childhood Bible. Because my childhood Bible, that we played with and did coloring books so that we would learn all the Bible studies was one thing. That's Sunday school, that's children's church, that's our parents, or that kind of thing. But they didn't use that to teach us the Bible. They used that to teach us the stories in the Bible. But in how to read the Bible, why the Bible's there, who is God, who is Christ, who is Mary, all that, the honor of Joseph, everything was this giant white Bible. And I remember it was made in the 70s. And somehow my mom found a guy that was selling it, and it originally had come with posters where all the, like the Last Supper and Sermon on the Mount, everything was people of color. The posters were people of color, and it came with the Bible, and the Bible was like expensive. So it took me a long time to find that Bible. I didn't find my childhood Bible. I found the same issue Bible. So I didn't find the one that I grew up with in my house, but I found the exact publication that I grew up with in my house, and that took 30 years. Probably because it was so beautiful, people didn't give it up. But I did eventually find one new in box. So either it hadn't moved from the factory, the publisher, someone had a lot and they didn't gift them all. I didn't ask the universe. I asked the universe, send me this Bible, and I'm not going to give up hope on it. And I didn't give up hope for 30 years, and I now have it. But sometimes bullies show up, so you do give up your hope. They don't want you to hold out hope. They don't want you to keep your faith in whatever you have faith in. I tell clients sometimes, have faith, and the sun came up, okay, the planet's still working. If trees pop out of the ground and gravity stops working, or the sun doesn't come up, then I might say, okay, let me see what's going on. Other than that, I know what's going on. Something's trying to trick you to lose your faith. It's very simple. And it looks different. It looks like friends that lie. They're Iagos. They really wish for your downfall. People start calling them frenemies, but Shakespeare called them Iago. Stick with Shakespeare, because you can read Othello and watch Iago unwind Othello's perfectly happy life and destroy him and it and his marriage, his family, his kingdom, because Iago was jealous. So now we call them frenemies. I know old war tactics would say keep your friends close but your enemies closer. That was so you could know what your enemy was up to. But in this day and age where we understand everything's energy and everybody's energy, I wouldn't keep my enemies that close. I always say I don't have any enemies. So if people think they're my enemy, they're in a war by themselves, because I'm not the only soldier in my war, right? I just do what my boss tells me. And then there are legions of armies that fight my wars. And then, of course, I fight wars if God tells me to in the physical world with exposés or books or profiling. I think at last count, I'm up to 119 different ways that my work has changed the world. So not 119 different times, but 119 different ways, like the pedophiles that were hurting children, childhood abuse, poverty, the purposeful miseducation of the poor, pollution in the Egyptian canals, just 119 different ways that the world is better because I listen to God and I live and breathe on this planet. That does not mean that there were not things who thought they could make my life hard and I would stop. Well, I haven't stopped, and it's been 30 years and I haven't stopped, and I'm not really planning on stopping. I always think of football terms with certain things, and so My prayer game is no joke. It's been at 5 a.m. for 40 years. So I am starting to do videos with my makeup and without my makeup because I don't wear makeup every day. And I used to, but the world is new. So I try to cut people a break because they always think I'm dressed up, and I'm not trying to dress up. So that was my normal. So I'm starting to wear more of like my meditation clothes. And then I gave myself the sniffles because I drank the condensed milk that you use to make pie. I use it to make a smoothie, and my body's not used to sugar, so now I've got a runny nose. It may even be a little red at the tip. That happens, but I'm okay. It's just I shouldn't drink like basically pure sugar and make it into a milkshake, even though I did add soda water. I'm telling you all this because I needed your brain to detach from the pain of the bully, but I needed to bring it up. So now that I brought it up, but I know that it's not hurting you because of the story that I just told you, right? You now have information that erases that pain. Now we need to erase the bully. So bullies are people who don't like themselves. That's the definition of being a bully. See, people think it means someone more powerful or someone who can harm you and get away with it, or how cowards just let it happen. My parents both loved the Wild West like nobody's business, meaning they had me watching Westerns. I remember my mom's gun even had a pearl handle and silver engravings, right? So for them, everything was the honor of the Wild West. And I grew up riding horses ever since I was really little, when my Aunt Ida gave me a horse. And then I would ride horses all through my 20s. I rode horses. And then I stopped riding them as much as I just started visiting. And the more I started teaching vibe is everything and everything is vibe. And then, finally the world started, catching on and saying, oh yeah, by the way, everything is energy. I'm like, yay, great. I've been saying that for 20 years. And if I had been giving into bullies, I wouldn't have been able to save all those survivors of incest or ritual abuse or torture, because I would have mistook wrongly judging, right? That's when you judge by accident. I would have mistook what I thought I knew, which is they were a victim of something, and I wouldn't have seen the energy that was also in their space, which was not theirs or was not light. But because I grew up that judging was a sin, that it was a way that the devil could get in my life, my parents also raised me that drinking, smoking, cursing, gossip, like little things. So I don't have a large gray scale when it comes to evil, but I have seen super dark with no light, and I have seen super light with no darkness. And so even though, I finished Chinese medicine school in 97 and been practicing for a long time, there were some points where God literally said, stop touching people because you're knocking their karma out of their space. And I was like, oh, karma's a real thing. And then I looked it up and I was like, oh, because your energy, you're putting it out, right? And I was like, okay, so what about the stuff that happens that's not your karma? And that led to my first book. And then I started thinking permissions of energetic societies. Let me break that down for you. When people stay in judgment, their heart is never open or pure enough for God to flow through it. So what they end up with instead is a false piety. So they're not even pious because they think they don't do stuff. They are not necessarily judging other people for, like, let's say drinking or smoking, right? I don't judge people for the stuff they do. I really don't care about the stuff that they do. And I don't judge people because we all have free will. So to me, one of my teachers taught me, your free will ends at the tip of your nose. And so I don't try to enforce my free will on someone else's free will, because then I'd be in a violation spiritually. So I don't even bother to do it. And sometimes people are amazed with who I have as friends or who I've helped as clients, because I don't judge people, because I don't feel that would benefit me or the planet. And it definitely will leave people who need help without help. That also needs to be said, don't mistake kindness for weakness, okay? It's easy to be mean. It's easy to be unkind. It's easy to lie. It's easy to manipulate. It's not easy to grow up as an adult and not have committed a sin till you're 40. Okay? And I've committed, 8 sins in my whole life. And unfortunately, I was naive enough to get tricked into all of them. But I still counted them because I shouldn't have let myself not that I shouldn't let myself get tricked, because people shouldn't be manipulating, but I shouldn't have let myself be so non-judgmental that it was detrimental. So don't mistake discernment for judgment. Judgment means I can believe you're drinking that's bad, right? You're bad, you're a bad person, you're evil, you're a lost soul, all that kind of stuff. That's judgment. Discernment says because you drink, the alcohol pierces little holes in your energetic space, so negative things might get in, so you might not be made of pure light, okay? Or as purely as you can be made of light. But I also don't believe that the balance of yin-yang is I'm light with a little bit of dark and you're dark with a little bit of light as it's drawn. That is to show us that is the way the world has functioned. Okay, we got a new world last year anyway, but in the way that the world had been functioning, what it really meant, if you actually study Eastern medicine more and, graduate like I did, then, and I guess you'd have to, because I know some people who did and never figured that out. I know some people who own schools and never figured it out. My school didn't figure it out until I wrote my senior project, and then they tried to steal it and turn it into a book. I found that out recently. So it is to become the uncarved stone. So the best way to win a war is to not enter a battle in anger. Okay? So I'll say it again. The best way to win a war is to not enter a battle in anger. Meaning, I'm not going to run at you, my sword like this, screaming, because I'm angry. I might do it because I need to pull in some chi. I might do it if God tells me. But when I fight battles, whether it's exposés, supervillains, TV shows, radio shows, whatever I'm doing to stop something that is unjust and harming the world or souls in it, or even protecting a right that I don't agree with, right? I agree that God gave everybody free will. That does not mean because he gave everybody free will that I agree with everybody's choices they've made. But there have been times where I defended their right to their choice because I was defending free will. I wasn't saying, yeah, go do that. I was saying, I'm not judging you because you do it. What we have right now in society is a complete reverse of all that. People are judging people with anger and jealousy, and then deciding that's who you are. There are little kids walking up and bullying other little kids and telling them stuff like, you're dumb, you're stupid, you're nothing, I can do whatever you want to you. But guess who says that? Demons, pedophiles. Literally, I have had over 80,000 students at this point. Incest survivors and ritual abuse survivors and torture survivors, always, especially extreme torture. The person doing those things to each different group and each different person over the decades in different countries, social classes, races, genders, they always say, I can do whatever I want to you. Okay? So a little baby genius came to me for therapy. He needed life coaching, really. He, nothing was wrong with him. He just was trying to figure out how his mind fit in this world, and he was trying to make the world fit in his mind. But his mind's bigger than the world. So I had to teach him to reverse that. Got it? So you make yourself bigger than the villain by trying to understand all sides, and then all sides through history. So the easiest way, so that you don't have to study thousands of books, is to say this. If a bully, a villain, someone who claims they're your loved one or your friend calls you stupid, calls you fat, calls you dumb, calls you ugly, if they call you anything to hurt you, evil is using them to hurt you. I'm not saying forgive them because evil is using them, because they shouldn't be letting evil use them. And evil tries, and people send evil to you. Matter of fact, I grew up in a church that thought if you don't do anything bad, nothing bad can happen to you. Well, it turned out if you don't do anything bad, evil is like on extra duty to try to get you to do something bad. And people who do evil on purpose will actually send stuff to make challenges in your life, so you choose evil to fix the challenge. So that tells you don't choose evil, because they're the one who sent the problem. They're not the solution, right? So when a bully comes up to you and says, you're fat, right? I remember one time I had a ballet teacher, and I was, young, and I was taking ballet, and he'd always give me low scores and low grades, even though I was really good and I always did all my movements and I was always at practice and I never missed class. And I said, why would you give me a low score all the time? And he said, because you're not built like a ballerina. Well, most of you who know me, I use my cosplay and over the years, and I sold and made documentaries and saved lives and helped old people and helped children and women and men who are being misused and abused by women, right? So my cosplay pays for those films and those documentaries. Well, guess what? No, I'm not shaped like a ballerina. Thank goodness. I'm shaped like Wonder Woman. That's a good thing. And so I said to him something like, no, I'm shaped like a figure 8. And then I said, I'm shaped like an hourglass. So every time he would say he got to abuse me, lower my grade for work that I did perfectly, right? All my technique was perfect and it looked lovely and I was dressed lovely and I did the whole thing, and he'd always give me low scores for having a voluptuous body that was an hourglass instead of like just a pretzel or a flat board, right? It is more aerodynamic when you're standing on point, but I wasn't learning point shoes. So that dude, he got so upset because he never got under my skin. See, their goal is to get into your soul, make you go into lower vibrations, make you go into fear, make you go into depression, make you think they have power. But the trick is they know they don't have power. That's why they're bullying you. They're bullying you because they feel powerless and they don't like themselves. That's what a bully is, any bully. Whether it's a corporation bullying the customer, like T-Mobile's totally scamming people right now and thinking, well, we could turn off your cell phone. So just pay us the extortion money, because it's extortion money. If you set up for $50 a month and they're charging you $80 a month, and then every month they threaten to turn off your phone if you don't pay the $80, that's theft. And it's extortion, because the extortion is you need your cell phone, right? So most bullies are trying to break you. They literally, that's their goal. Even if they're hitting you, they're not trying to break your face. They're trying to break your soul. So you have to have a sense of self. And I don't mean how these people who aren't teachers, who are getting hired to be teachers, meaning they didn't go to school to be a teacher, they don't know how to be a teacher, they don't know how to write curriculum, they don't understand child psychology, they don't even know child psychology is a thing. They think you're a grown-up, therefore you must know more than the kids, therefore you can be a teacher because you're the grown-up in the room. That's not being a teacher. Just like letting kids act straight up fool is not either. Okay? Notice how I didn't say misbehave. Misbehaving is part of child psychology. Certain age groups misbehave more than others. Certain personalities misbehave more than others. Certain genders misbehave at certain ages more than the other gender. But that's classroom management, which they don't know because they didn't go to school and get a credential, so they don't know what classroom management is. No one in your class should be bullied. Any teacher allowing bullying in her classroom needs to be fired, because bullying is causing suicide in itty bitties. Okay? So there are 8-year-olds committing suicide on Facebook Live, explaining all the years of bullying that were allowed in the classroom and sometimes encouraged by the teacher, and sometimes the teachers took part in it. These are teachers in name based on who's in the classroom, but not credentialed, not trained, not in their heart. That's why you're seeing on the news people sleeping with their students, smoking marijuana with their students, all kind of stuff. okay? Teaching their own personal political agendas. Do you know my grown-up clients don't even know my religion? No one knows my religion unless they're sitting next to me in the pew. Got it? Because I'm not trying to force my religious beliefs on someone. I'm not trying to be a bully over, I won't be your doctor if you're not this or that, or I won't help you if this or that, or I won't fix that, or I won't reprogram you, or I won't do the profiling job, right? I only profile when people on the internet security level, the only profiling jobs I will take, because I don't even attack hackers. I don't judge hackers. Some hackers are doing some fabulous things for the world, by the way. You should appreciate hackers, most of the hackers. I only go for hackers using ransomware when it comes to hospitals, stealing the data that's making hospitals not know the diagnosis or the medication for old people, and old people are dying because they didn't get the right medicine because the hackers took the data. Other than that, I don't even profile. Got it? I don't profile hackers. I profile cities. If the government asks me to, I profile school districts for the safety of children, for the not embezzling federal money. School districts claim that they are poor, but in the poorest neighborhoods, it's $186,000 per kid, per butt in seat, per year. So there's no reason not to educate people, because if you live in a small country town in a one-room schoolhouse, that means everybody goes to school in the same room, kindergarten through 8th grade usually. And you teach all those people. And you might have nothing but pencil and paper, and be lucky if you have chalk or markers so you can teach them some kind of art, right? Because with some basic chalk, you can teach pastels. But watercolor pencils are cheaper now too than they used to be. $11 a pencil, $100 for the set, $140 for a set of Primos. So when you look at the fact that they're getting paid that, but they're not teaching your kids, it's because of sociology. They're not teaching your kids, so your kids grow up to be viewed by society as criminals and bullies. And then when they go to jail or get shot in the back face down, nobody cares or pursues their murder. Okay? That's why they're claiming the district doesn't have money, because the money's being stolen and the money is being spent in smaller amounts by hiring teachers that aren't teachers with credentials, because teachers are paid by years and units. Teachers are paid by the number of years they've been a teacher and the number of college units they have while earning their credential. It's not even an option to be hiring people with no credentials. They've been doing it for 17 years, almost 20 years now, depending on the district, but almost every district has been doing a minimum of 17, some are up to 25 years. And they're doing it because society's looking the other way out of racism and classism, meaning they need the poor to stay poor so you can mow their lawns. Got it? They need the poor to stay poor so you can move the drugs in the streets, because I don't know anybody in the hood that's gonna buy drugs from like a white preppy dude in a suit, or even a black preppy dude in a suit. But so you need a certain class to create itself and recreate itself and wear their uniform. Okay, that's what I used to teach my students. There's 5 people we see, 5 jobs, 5 looks. They're all different looks depending on who we are, where we are, how we grow up, who raises us, our exposure to the world, libraries, museums, right? So if you look, you saw 5 people growing up. If you grew up in a certain neighborhood, it might have been pro athletes and movie stars, the mailman, whatever your mom and dad did, and your pastor or something like that. But if you grew up in the hood, you're going to see what? A janitor, a drug dealer, a mechanic, the mailman, and your pastor, right? So the 5 keep restricting your choices. So one time I met a man, he was like such an adorable man, but his parents had taught him, you're a doctor, lawyer, MBA, or you're nothing. And so that took everything else, all the other millions of things a person can be, on the planet out of his choices. So that made him unhappy, right? Because he didn't know what he wanted to be. And I've also met other men who grew up with nothing and made millions, and they were unhappy. But that's because of, evil mannequins. But that's a different series. So the mannequins are part of bullying, but they're not part of this chapter of this series, right? This is a four-part series. So when you're dealing with bullies, part of it is not letting a bully remake who you are. Okay? Like I do a paper doll class, and it's mainly for you to make a paper doll of you so that I can switch over in your head and reprogram, take out the pain in the subconscious and reprogram the subconscious and the conscious mind to see a true self of who you want to be, and that's who you are. So that if something comes and tells you you're something else, then you're like, no. Like if somebody says, oh, you're fat. Well, you know what? I'm fatter than I was when I was 12, but because I was like a little bone thin with knobby knees, right? 8, 12, puberty hit. Then I got, the girls, and then my waist just went, right? So I was like really hourglass. And so sometimes, depending on if I gain weight or not, my hourglass gets bigger or smaller. But I'm not fat. I know, because I went with people before to try out to be plus size models. I wasn't trying out to be a plus size model. I went with them so they could be a plus size model, and I got offered the contract. I am not a plus size person. Like I'm the smallest size in a plus size, and there's parts that don't fit me because I don't have that. I don't have hips that go round on the sides. My hips go straight like a boy. Like straight, I shouldn't say like a boy. Like we used to say like a boy, but some boys have hips, right? Like instead of going out like this on the side and then down, my hips go straight. They're just, there's no, right? And so with that in mind, it was like, oh, I get it. Every gender has every body type. And if you are fat, just love being fat. You see? And what is fat? If you wear a size 0, everybody seems fat. And then if you get a little pooch and you start to wear a 1 or a 2, size 1 or size 2, and you're a grown-up woman, then you feel like you're fat. I'm not saying fat shame or don't fat shame. What I'm saying, be like, accept yourself if you're fat, if you want to. If you don't want to accept yourself fat, lose weight. If you can't lose weight, then you probably were meant to be fat. Or there's something else going on, and maybe check with your doctor, go in meditation, check energetically. I teach my clients to do a forgiveness list. They lose 30 to 60 pounds. Just saying. So it's so funny. I know a wizard, and he used to always say just saying. Now I'm starting to say just saying. I haven't seen him a very long time, over a decade. But anyway, bullies try to rewrite who you are so then they can shape you into their victim. So what they do is they spy you as their victim based on race, based on class, based on monetary conditions, right? So maybe you're of a higher social class, but you don't have money right then, and they have money, or they want to trick you into thinking they'll give you money if you do a certain set of behaviors. Anything that tells you their love, their kindness, their help, their charity, their energy is based on you doing a certain set of behaviors, that's evil. That's evil using them, whether they chose for the evil to use them or they just made their space a comfortable place for evil to be. Okay? So I'm going to stop this part of this series, and I'll see you in the next part. And I'm trying to make them stand alone and integrated, which means if you see this one and you don't see the others, it still helps your life. And if you see all 4, change your life forever and ever in a greater way, to the point where you'll be dreaming of changes, walking down the street, meditating, seeing changes. But if you use one each individually, it still helps. Okay, so enjoy the series. I'm glad that, my intuition told me to make it a 4-part and do it on judgment, because there's too many people. Most people judging people, they don't even have the brain power to process They can't find truth. They can only find filters. They can only find their subconscious beliefs that they already think. And so your truth is sometimes too much for them. If you're a great person and they're a racist and you're a race that they're racist against, they'll never see your greatness. That's their problem. Don't let it be yours. If they're sexist, right? Whatever they are, if they're the same race, same age, same gender, same social class, and they're just dogging you out, it's because their soul is trying to break you so you let evil come in. Okay? But they don't like themselves. So that's all you have to do is make sure you like yourself. Their energy goes back to them, right? So you can give it to them and pray, or you can give it to God, right? You give it to the earth, but don't keep it inside of you. And when I say give it to the earth, I mean Gaia recycles. When I was a little girl, I was taught by my mom's friends who were feminists, not these man-hating, yelling, screaming feminists. Feminists that taught little girls about women's history and that little girls had worth. Okay? Not hate men, not calling men toxic. It was so sweet. I saw a guy and I almost accepted him as a client, but I was able to fix it like in a talk. So he didn't need sessions, and it only takes me 3 to 5 sessions anyway. But he was like, they keep having all this stuff that says the future is female. I'm not female. What does that mean for my future? And I was like, oh, that's so cute. And I kind of laughed and it hurt him more. And then I realized like, oh, he's scared. So this is not right, right? That's not being a feminist. And most of the people running around now calling themselves feminists are angry and disempowered. They attack women. And at women's feminist movement marches, we're calling black women the N-word as they walk to the feminist march. Okay? So don't get fooled and giving yourself a title when it's just anger and evil. So I got to go because, the landscaper's getting a little closer and I don't know how the volume's working right now. And we're good anyway. You guys have more than enough for this part of this series. Watch the other parts. See you soon.